All right, it's extremely windy out here and quite cold today, but I want to jump into something a little bit farther out on the edge of the limb than what I usually do. It's a spiritual experience that was had by Swami Vivekananda, as recorded by Swami Sharadananda in his book, The Great Master, which is really about the life of Sri Ramakrishna from a monastic perspective. So it really talks a lot about his spiritual practices and whatnot. And so Sri Ramakrishna was the guru or the teacher of Swami Vivekananda, and this is earlier on in their relationship, although they knew each other quite well at this point, and quite a bit of teaching had happened. Anyway, it goes on. It says, one day, the master, which is Sri Ramakrishna, told Narendra many things indicating the oneness of the soul and of God, of the non-dual philosophy, the idea that God is everything and more, that there is nothing but God. It's like when you dream, everything in your dream is you, right? Because it's in your own mind. So in a general sense, you could sort of use that to put a handle on what he's talking about here, that God has become all of this. From the Christian scriptures, you get a hint of that in the first couple of verses of John, that through the word, everything has been manifested. So he says he's talking to him about this non-dual philosophy, what in Vedanta is known as Advaita, one without a second. He says, Narendra heard these words, undoubtedly with attention, but he could not comprehend them and went to Hazra, who was a friend of his, at the end of the master's talk. Smoking and discussing these things again with Hazra, he said, can it ever be possible that the water pot is God, that this cup is God, that whatever we see and all of us are God? Hazra also joined Narendra in ridiculing this idea, and both of them burst into laughter. The master was, up until then, in a state of partial consciousness because of his deep spiritual practice at that moment, and hearing Narendra laugh, he came out of his room like a boy with his cloth on his arm, and coming to them smiling, said affectionately, "What are you both talking about?" He then touched Narendra and went into ecstasy. Narendra said to us afterward, "There was a complete revolution in the state of my mind in a moment at the wonderful touch of the Master. I was aghast to see actually that there was nothing in the whole universe except God, but I remained silent in spite of seeing it, wondering how long that state would last. But that inebriation did not diminish all that day. I returned home. It was the same there. It seemed to me that all I saw was he. I sat for my meal when I saw that the food, the plate, the one who was serving, as well as myself, were nothing but the divine. I took a mouthful or two and sat quiet. My mother's affectionate words, 'Why do you sit so quietly? Why don't you eat?' brought me to consciousness, and I began eating again." All right, regardless of what we believe in that or how that affects you as far as a factual thing, remember what we talked about the other day, that you take these things and let them run through your mind. But I have found it incredibly useful just to face the current times, that here we are, the society just polarizing and people disrespecting and arguing from all sides and crazy things happening one after another. You hardly get to process one before the next one pops up and you're like, oh my God, where is normalcy? Where are normal people at? Really, what is going on here? And I had this image this morning as I was laying and contemplating all of this of being a cat in a mutineering pirate ship. You know how cats are. They kind of exist in their own space for their own space, but they're very affectionate and very caring. But in a mutineering pirate ship, all the pirates are down there cutting each other's throats and screaming at each other and throwing each other overboard. And you can know that a cat is going to be climbing up the post and sitting up in the little lookout bin up at the top of that top of that sail, and just watching it all happen, maybe licking his paws, and just kind of very nonchalantly going on. And when the excitement's over, he'll come back down and be affectionate with whoever is left. And you think, well, Swami, what in the world does that story have to do with what you just read? Well, so we can use this knowledge that at least one person, two people in this story, have realized the reality of God as all things, that there is one without a second, that we are all that image of the beloved, the divine, and the nature inside, as we always talk about, is love. And taking into account what we read yesterday in the Dhammapada, or the day before in the Dhammapada, about having that island unto ourselves that we create, that oasis of tranquility within, where we are secure in our knowledge of who we are and what we are. And for us to consider that little island of tranquility inside, to be the lookout at the top of the mast, and for us to sit there like a cat, disinterested in all the particulars of what's going on, and remembering what is important, that we're a cat and not a pirate, and this is not ours to fight over, that we will sit and watch, and when things settle, then we'll climb down the post and return. In a very balanced, centered, loving, compassionate, empathetic way, to face the world and to manifest our nature in caring, investing, and loving everyone and everything around us. God bless us all.